Something extraordinary is being assembled in a small town 40 miles from Boston. A machine built to hold matter 10 times hotter than the center of the sun. At its core, hydrogen nuclei will slam into each other so violently that they fuse into helium and release enormous amounts of energy. The same process that powers every star in the universe. For 70 years, physicists have tried to recreate it inside a machine. And for 70 years, they have failed. Fusion became the running joke of science, always 30 years away. But something has shifted. The physics has been validated. The magnets have been built and independently tested. Billions of dollars have been committed in actual signed contracts, not promises, and the machine itself is already about 75% complete. This is the story of how fusion crossed the line from science experiment to engineering project, and how close we really are. Subscribe to the channel and let me explain. On paper, the case for fusion is almost unfair. Deuterium, one of its fuels, can be extracted from ordinary seawater. A single gram of fusion fuel carries the energy of roughly 8 tons of crude oil. Just imagine the energy of a tanker truck hidden inside something lighter than a paperclip. The reaction produces helium, no long-lived radioactive waste, and there is no meltdown scenario. Unlike fission, fusion is inherently self-limiting. If containment fails, the plasma simply cools and the reaction stops. Nothing explodes, it just turns off. So why don't we have it yet? Because the sun is cheating. The sun achieves fusion through brute gravitational force. The sheer mass of its outer layers creates pressure of roughly 250 billion atmospheres at the core. We cannot replicate that. So engineers went for a workaround: magnetic confinement. A donut-shaped machine called a tokamak generates powerful magnetic fields that suspend a ring of superheated plasma away from the walls. The plasma has to be heated beyond 100 million degrees Celsius and held stable long enough for fusion to actually happen. And this is exactly where every attempt in history fell short. The best result came in 1997, when the joint European Torus produced 16 megawatts of fusion power. But it consumed more energy heating the plasma than the fusion gave back. A Q ratio of 0.67, 2/3 of the way to break even. Close, but not net positive. And for almost 3 decades, that record just sat there. The international answer was ITER, a colossal tokamak under construction in the south of France. Originally budgeted at $5 billion, current estimates exceed $20 billion. The tokamak alone weighs 23,000 tons. The timeline has slipped again and again, and the machine isn't expected to attempt net energy gain until 2039. Here is what's essential to understand. This is not a failure of physics. It's a consequence of scale. Conventional superconducting magnets are simply too weak, so the only way to reach fusion conditions is to make the machine enormous. And at that size, every engineering problem compounds. So what changed? Not one thing. 3 things: a magnet, an algorithm, and money. Let's take them one by one. In September 2021, Commonwealth Fusion Systems, a company spun out of MIT's Plasma Science and Fusion Center, tested a new kind of magnet. It reached a field strength of 20 Tesla, the most powerful magnetic field ever produced by a fusion-relevant magnet, roughly 13 times stronger than the magnet in a hospital MRI. And here is why this single number changes everything. Fusion power density scales with the 4th power of the magnetic field. Let's run some quick back-of-the-envelope math. Double the field strength and you don't get twice the performance. You get 16 times more, which means a magnet that is incrementally stronger enables a reactor that is dramatically smaller. That is the entire bet. The secret is a material called ReBco. Rare earth barium copper oxide, a high-temperature superconductor that operates at around 20 Kelvin instead of the roughly 4 Kelvin that ITER's niobium tin magnets require. This simplifies the cryogenics massively and allows an absurdly compact machine. Spark, the reactor built around these magnets, has a plasma chamber roughly 1/25 the volume of ITER's. Think of it as the mainframe to PC moment of fusion. Not a better machine, a faster development cycle. Now, extraordinary claims need extraordinary proof, and this is where it gets serious. In September 2025, an independent panel of experts under the U.S. Department of Energy's Milestone program validated the performance tests of the first full-scale production magnet and awarded CFS $8 million, the largest payout to any company in the program. The magnets work exactly as the models predicted. That box is checked. But a strong magnet solves only half of the problem, because the thing inside that magnetic cage has a temper. Plasma at fusion temperatures is one of the most unruly objects in physics. It twists, it kinks, it erupts at its edges, and in the worst case, a disruption can dump the entire energy content of the plasma into the reactor walls within milliseconds. Historically, engineers manage this with pre-programmed magnetic adjustments, a reactive approach that is simply too slow for many failure modes. Then, in 2022, DeepMind demonstrated something remarkable. A reinforcement learning system controlled the plasma in a Swiss tokamak in real time, adjusting 19 magnetic coils simultaneously and holding shapes that would be impossible to program by hand. Suddenly, the oldest problem in fusion had a completely new kind of solution, and CFS went all in on it. At CES in January 2026, the company announced a three-way collaboration with NVIDIA and Siemens to build a digital twin of Spark. Siemens software collects data straight from the magnet factory floor and feeds it into NVIDIA's simulation platform, where AI hosts a virtual model of the machine, which means engineers can test operating scenarios computationally before the real machine is ever switched on. And here's the ironic part. The technology that is currently devouring gigawatts in AI data centers might be exactly what unlocks the energy source to feed it. I'm really curious to read your take on this in the comments section below. The third shift, and honestly, this might be the most important one, is the money. For most of its history, fusion was funded almost exclusively by governments. Long-time horizons, limited commercial pressure, important science, slow engineering. That era is over. According to the Fusion Industry Association, private fusion companies raised a record $4.48 billion in the 12 months leading to July 2026, 69% more than the year before, bringing the total to $14.24 billion since 2021, across 56 companies employing more than 16,000 people. And that's a lot. CFS alone has raised almost $3 billion, including an $863 million round in August 2025. But here's the part that separates this moment from every hype cycle before it. Companies are no longer just investing in fusion. They are buying the electricity. In June 2025, Google agreed to purchase half the output of CFS's first commercial reactor, 200 megawatts. 3 months later, the Italian energy giant Eni signed a power purchase agreement worth more than $1 billion for electricity from the same 400 megawatt plant. Just think about what that means. One of the world's largest energy companies did its own due diligence, looked at the engineering risk, and signed a contract to buy power from a fusion reactor that doesn't exist yet. That is not speculation. That is a bet with a signature on it. All three developments, the magnet, the algorithm, the money, converge in a single machine. And now let me show you where it stands today, because the assembly timeline reads like nothing else in the history of fusion. The machine is called Spark, literally the smallest possible arc, and it's rising at the CFS campus in Devens, Massachusetts. In March 2025, they installed the cryostat base, a 24-foot stainless steel disc weighing 75 tons, built to carry the entire 1,000-ton weight of the tokamak. In October 2025, the first half of the vacuum vessel arrived. A 48-ton, half-donut-shaped steel chamber whose only job is to create a bubble of outer space here on Earth, because even a wisp of air will snuff out the plasma. In December, the first toroidal field magnet rolled across the campus, 24 tons of steel-clad superconductor built from a stack of 16 flat plates the engineers call pancakes, each carrying layers of Rebco tape. In January 2026, it was mounted, the first of 18 magnets that will form the ring around the plasma. Each one is cooled to minus 253 degrees Celsius, carries more than 30,000 amps, and, as the company's CEO put it, is powerful enough to lift an aircraft carrier. And now the pace becomes staggering. Magnets are coming off the production line roughly every 2 weeks, with all 18 expected in place by the end of this summer. In May 2026, the second 48-ton half of the vacuum vessel was craned into Tokamak Hall. The chamber was joined together, and the machine crossed roughly 75% completion. Inside, technicians are lining the walls with tungsten, the metal with the highest melting point on the periodic table, because the plasma it will face burns hotter than 100 million degrees. First plasma is targeted before the end of 2026. Net energy, more power out of the fusion than went into heating it, is targeted for 2027. And Spark isn't designed to just scrape past break even. The design target is a Q above 2, and the physics models suggest it could reach around 10. Just to put this in context, the machine attempting this is a fraction of ITER's size at a fraction of the cost, 12 years ahead of ITER's 2039 attempt. Here's the catch though. Even if Spark works perfectly, it will never power a single home. It's a demonstration machine. It proves the physics, not the product. The product is the next machine. That machine is called ARC, affordable, robust, compact, planned for Chesterfield County, Virginia, just outside Richmond, designed to deliver 400 megawatts to the grid in the early 2030s, enough for roughly 300,000 homes. And the location is no accident. Virginia is home to the world's biggest hub of energy-hungry data centers. The machines that consume the most power on Earth might become Fusion's very first customers, and I'm totally for that. But I have to be honest with you, because between Spark and ARC sit problems no one has solved yet. Tritium, the second fuel, is one of the rarest substances on the planet. The global inventory is measured in kilograms, most of it a byproduct of Canadian heavy water reactors. A commercial plant has to breed its own tritium in lithium blankets around the plasma, and that has never been demonstrated at scale. The reactor's first wall will be bombarded by high-energy neutrons for years, and no existing material has been tested against that for the lifetime a power plant requires, and the regulatory framework for fusion plants is still being written. None of these are fundamental physics problems. They are material science and mechanical engineering. But none of them are trivial either. The good news is that CFS is not alone. Helium Energy, which already has a power purchase agreement with Microsoft, raised another $465 million in June 2026, and Germany's Proxima Fusion pulled in $518 million for its Stellarator approach. TAE Technologies and General Fusion are taking fusion public on the NASDAQ. In total, 56 companies are attacking the problem with half a dozen different confinement approaches, and 71% of them expect the first commercial fusion electricity in the 2030s. Which means, even if one path hits a dead end, the field doesn't stall. So, how close are we really? Here's my honest read. What separates this moment from every previous fusion is imminent headline is specificity. There is a machine, it has a location, a construction schedule, independently validated magnets, and customers with signed contracts. Setbacks will come. Engineering at this scale never goes smoothly. But the question itself has changed. It is no longer whether physics permits net energy from magnetic confinement. It does. The question is whether it can be executed on a timeline and at a cost that beats other clean energy. For the first time in 70 years, fusion is an engineering question, not a science question. And engineering questions eventually get answered. Let's hope this bet pays off, because if it does, everything downstream changes. Energy prices, AI, even geopolitics. Now drop your take in the comment section below. Is 2027 the year fusion finally delivers, or are we still fooling ourselves? If you enjoyed this episode, the best way to support this work is to share it with someone who still thinks fusion is forever 30 years away, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching.